Welcome. Let's take a look now at the week ahead, starting Monday, the 6th of June. Before we take a look at the figures themselves and what we're to expect, I just wanted to explain a little bit more about what's been happening and indeed what's going on. Because in the next 2 days, as from the time of this recording on Wednesday, the UK markets will be out for the cash trading day. There will be 24-hour markets continuing on the IG platform, but we will not be broadcasting here from the UK on Thursday and Friday. So looking ahead to the week starting Monday the 6th. Let's begin with the agenda for the corporate calendar. And I want to begin on Monday, where we see the early doors release of the Caixin Services PMI in China. Really important number to gauge the emphasis on what's happening within the services sector in the Chinese economy. And then we get global construction PMI data from S&P for Germany. Snapshot of Tuesday's trade begins early in the morning with BRC retail sales monitor. We'll cover this in the early morning call. It could well be giving us a steer for a sterling trade, and we'll be looking at the Australian dollar as well because of the RBA interest rate decision also out overnight. And just before the European equity markets get underway, we get German factory orders, and then later in the day it's trade numbers in the US, and later still the American Petroleum Institute on their weekly crude oil inventories. Let's check on Wednesday, the 8th of June, where we start off in Japan, where we get the final reading of the first quarter GDP number. German industrial production, Eurozone first quarter GDP, that's a final number as well, so not expecting much to come out of that. And later on in the day, it's the EIA weekly crude oil inventories. Let's take a look at what's happening on the 9th. Chinese trade balance out overnight. And then we get the ECB interest rate decision from the Eurozone. We're seeing increasingly hawkish rhetoric from some of these voting members of the ECB. It'll be interesting to see just what the tenor of their statement is and whether or not they are wanting to act this time around. And then pretty much the same sort of time of day, we get the weekly jobless claims in the States. And to round off the week, overnight, Japanese producer prices, we get the CPI and PPI data in China. And later on the day, we get consumer prices as well, Michigan consumer sentiment, and that weekly Baker Hughes rig count. Axel Rudolph, IG's technical analyst, joins us now with his choice of charts relating to what's happening next week. What are you picking out, Axel, as something to watch for from our perspective as a trading population?
I believe that the Aussie dollar against the US dollar is quite interesting if you think about the RBA's rate decision on Tuesday, because as you can see here on the daily chart, we've been rising for the last 2 weeks, and we are now heading up towards quite important resistance. So maybe with Tuesday's rate decision, we may see an inflection point happening there in the future. Why is it important? Technically, simply because the May high was made at 72.66, and also you can see here the red and also the orange lines, which are the 55 and 200-day simple moving averages, which can be seen at 72.59. So this whole area 72.59 to 66 is important resistance. Maybe we'll fail there, and then we could come back off again towards the psychological 70 area. But if that were to be broken through this resistance in 72.66, we could then accelerate higher still and reach the late April high at 74.58. So interesting to see what's going to happen in that resistance zone if we were to get close to it next week.
Certainly worth watching out for on Tuesday with that interest rate decision. Let's just catch up on some of the corporates to watch out for next week. It is a week that's very light in terms of corporate numbers. In fact, I've just got one slide to show you. And one of the highlights, I guess, here is going to be what's happening with Tate & Lyle. It's a food company, or a company that relies on demand within the food sector. We've been hearing recently the difficulties that we have here in the UK now exporting to the European Union with the first quarter food and drink sales down a whopping 17%. Interesting to see if Tate & Lyle says anything about that when it produces its full year numbers on Thursday. Also coming out at the same time, full year earnings from the business services company Mighty and the brewer Fuller Smith & Turner. And we get a trading statement from British American Tobacco. Well, let's take a look at these and work out which one is of importance, again, from a trading point of view. Axel, thoughts?
British American Tobacco for me, because this stock has actually been rising by 28% since the beginning of the year. So it's been really outperforming. And what is interesting from a technical perspective is that last week we made a high at 3,600 pence or so. and we then came off. And this was because we had a negative divergence here. As you can see, we made a higher high on the price, but we made a lower high on the relative strength index, the RSI. And that led us to come back down again, but we've held above the previous lows, the mid-May lows, and also the support line. And we did so at 3,445. So what is interesting here is, and perhaps next week's trading statement will give us more clues as to the future direction of this trend, is whether we can break through the 3,600 mark or not. And if we were to do so, if I go back onto a weekly chart, we can see that the next upside target is all the way back to January of 2018 at around 3,800 pence. So perhaps still further upside in store for British American Tobacco.
Great, Axel. Thanks so much indeed. Thanks for joining us. And just a quick reminder again that Axel and I and the rest of the team will be back on Monday morning with Monday morning's early morning call. For more videos from us here at IGTV, join us on Twitter at IGCom, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.